Ada gambar uniform tu, Cik cari dulu.
Ni okey. Uniform kita orang light blue dengan dark blue.
This one another uniform. Last time no tudung. And you skirt pula tu. Aduh, ya. Those days is normal lah.
In the mid-1970s, thousands of young Malaysian women travelled from their rural villages to work in urban factories. They came to be known as Mina Karin.
Mina Karin is, Mina Karin everywhere, so people call you Mina Karin. I can't be bothered. My main intention to go is to work to earn a living, kan?
And what is your job? What do you do?
I'm a sales representative at an automobile firm. To make it in plain English, I sell cars.
You know much about cars?
Oh yeah, not much, just enough to swindle my customers, I guess.
Oh, you pretty little thing.
The 1970s turned out to be a time of great change for Malaysia, and especially for women. In 1971, the new economic policy was implemented, which laid out plans to lift Malaysians out of poverty through industrialization. This was the start of a huge social and economic shift in Malaysia.
Prior to this, women either were employed in the government service, teachers, nurses. That was the kind of employment for women at that time.
With business-friendly policies and free trade zones, manufacturers from Japan and Europe quickly set up shop, and they needed staff. One of the biggest new employers was the electrical and electronics industry, who were encouraged to hire women.
What I remember is the nimble fingers of the women are suitable for doing the kind of work that is required in an electronics factory. So that's why, for the first time, thousands of women came into the big city.
I was in KL since 1974, I think. Joined the factories. After, in 1984, I was promoted as a supervisor. So there is one vacancy. So that is the time in 1986 that I brought you in.
After SPM, at the age of 19, so I worked with a QA department. It's a very happy job.
But almost as soon as women joined this industrial workforce, they were labelled.
Sebab bila dilabelkan Mina Karin, sebab tu dulu orang-orang tu, orang tua-tua mak ayah makcik dulu memang tak bagi kerja kat kilang ni. Hanya segelintir sikap manusia, ini semua sikap manusia lah, menggelang-gelangkan kami macam tu, padahal elok je.
In fact, it was the women workers who were facing sexual harassment.
Dulu-dulu tu memang pekerja-pekerja kilang zaman-zaman makcik tu memang sering diganggu oleh pekerja-pekerja lelaki. Itu memang tak dinafikan. Pernah semua tu berlaku depan mata lah. Jadi ada juga masa ketikanya makcik pergi jumpa juga individu tu supaya jangan bersikap macam tu. Bagi makcik waktu tu yang macam gangguan-gangguan seksual tu adalah faktor nombor 2. Tapi faktor nombor 1 yang makcik jadi nak berjuang untuk pekerja adalah kerana kebajikan pekerja.
Factory working conditions at the time, for men and for women, were not ideal, with few health and safety regulations and harsh punishments for missing work or missing targets. For women especially, it was almost impossible to be promoted higher than supervisor. So while as Lena and her colleagues fought for their right to unionize, women in other industries were organizing too.
The YWCA of Malaysia, in its biennial delegates conference, passed a resolution calling for the setting up of a National Council of Women's Organizations. They felt that this was very urgent as there were many discriminatory practices against women. An example of the discrimination that women faced in those days, when they got married, they were forced to have a 1 day's break in service, and from a permanent job they become temporary employees was really a very difficult thing to accept. And so that basically started us working so hard to put things right. When NCW was formed in 1963, the first task that they undertook was to identify all the legislations that discriminated against women.
Within a few years, the NCWO managed to see a number of these legislations addressed and updated. In 1968, the Married Women and Children's Act and the Pensions Act Amendment were passed. In 1969, equal pay for work of equal value was enforced by the government. As women's rights and employment grew, the Malaysian economy boomed. GDP more than doubled in a 10-year period. The manufacturing sector has been called the backbone of Malaysia's economic growth, and electrical and electronic products are the country's largest exports. The majority of E&E employees are female, and despite what some feared, most did not stop working once they married.
Definitely, I won't stop work lah after marriage kan. Because the salary is quite high also that time. So if you want to, why must you go and want to stop work? Whereas I still have at that time when I got married, my youngest sister is only 8 years old. I still have to support my parents, no. Because my parents, of course, getting older and older kan. So actually, when I worked that time, thanks to God, thanks to Allah, I really helped a lot to my parents.
Earning a salary made a big difference in their lives. Now they had more control over their lives, and so despite whatever difficulties they have at the workplace, they still were determined to work. And because they sent money back home, they also were respected more at home because they were contributing to the family.
The days when women were almost completely excluded from professional work may seem distant, but workplaces are still grappling with gender issues.
Saya cerita pasal tarikan dulu. Kan? Dia berpunca daripada tarikan dulu. Kan? Tak kira lelaki tu pakai short pendek, nampak dia punya bentuk apa semua, itu semua tarikan. Bagi saya itu semua tarikan.
Kalau nak boleh Google kes gangguan seksual bukan hanya ditengok kepada pakaian.
This is a gender training, and then we also focus on the International Labour Organization latest convention. It's a C190. It's about the violence and harassment in the world of work.
This training is clearly important, as more than half of Malaysian women have experienced gender discrimination at work. Women also continue to be stuck in low-skilled, low-paid work and represent just 17% of board members and senior management.
The electronic sector has 70% of women workers, but the leadership are majority males. So where are they?
Malaysia has one of the lowest rates of female employment in the region, and estimates say that more women in the workforce could contribute between 6 and 9 billion ringgit to GDP. But studies show that many women are forced out of the workplace by family commitments.
I have one daughter kan, just started work lah. And then after married, I think the husband asked her to stop because the children still small. But she didn't work for more than almost 5 years. Then in the end, I told the husband, better let her work. Like. Now she's working. I'm so happy, thanks to God. If no support from the husband, also quite difficult lah in life, true or not?
Most men now have come to understand that there's a need for women to be empowered and that they must work in partnership with the women. And as long as the men don't recognize the women as partners and work with them, they will be the losers because they will not be able to achieve all the things unless they work together with the women. The fact that women have come and are holding positions in various places, including in the private sector, the government sector, has made a big difference. And we can see for ourselves that they are there doing such a wonderful job.
Pada pendapat makcik lah, wanita ni dia perlu di dalam apa saja organisasi ke, tak kira untuk mentadbir negara ke, kilang ke, perlu ada wanita. Hanya wanita saja yang boleh menyuarakan perasaan wanita. Jadi penting wanita ada dalam apa-apa juga organisasi ke, wanita memang main peranan yang penting pada pendapat makcik lah.